Hey everyone, God bless you. Thanks for joining. I have a couple of things I want to talk to some of my listeners about concerning inflammation in the body. Inflammation in the body. And many of you already know that inflammation in the body means that there's either an infection or there's a high white blood count or that there is an autoimmune disease. And so, for that reason, I have at the bottom of the page listed for you that I don't suggest that you follow my advice. Everybody's different, their chemistry is different. So, definitely seek the advice of a primary care provider or a specialist concerning whatever your medical needs are for many of the things that I'll be talking about. Okay, give me a second. I want to say that I got a lot of this information from a book called Goodbye Lupus. And I've been reading that or have been following that podcast, Goodbye Lupus, because I was diagnosed with it and I wanted to pursue some opportunities. I wanted to pursue some opportunities to manage and probably even get to the place of a cure for my diagnosis on a non-pharmacological basis. So I'm going to leave this information also on the YouTube website. I'll leave some links for you. But let's just talk a little bit about autoimmune diseases and this terrible thing we know about called inflammation. All right. So arthritis and lupus are both autoimmune diseases. All right. So let's just talk about autoimmune diseases. There are a number of them. There's almost an inexhaustible list because so many of the effects of inflammation cause problems throughout the body. And they also, each of those problems invite other problems. So, where the inflammation may not be the direct cause, but because there is inflammation in the body, it affects other functions of the body. And I'll give you some examples in a second. So, number one, let me just get this before me. Number one, inflammation. Let's talk about inflammation. Inflammation is when your body wants to fight out invaders in the body, like germs or pathogens and different bacteria that may get into the body's bloodstream. The body is going to immediately begin to work. That's the way we are built. That's the way we were created. And so, in the event that there is a injury or if there is an invader in the body, germs or whatever, your immune system goes into it becomes very active to get rid of it. The white blood cells come together to force that foreign substance, whatever it is, out of the body. The problem with that is it's good that it can do that, and there are some problems. Let's just start with number one. It increases the white blood count, and that can cause a number of both neurological and physical problems. So, for example, and by the way, I am giving you this information based on the study that I did and research that I did concerning the effects of inflammation in the body and how it can affect you neurologically, how it can affect you in your skin on the surface. There's other effects that it has in the subcutaneous or the beneath the skin area. And then there are effects that it has on the organs. It even has effect on the blood vessels. So let's just go ahead and give an overall view. Inflammation is again your body's immune system fighting out or fighting to push out invaders like germs, bacteria, pathogens. And if there is, for example, you fall, let me just give you a good visual. Or as we were children, we might have, fell, scraped our knee, riding bikes or whatever, and you got a sore. And then the sore would cover over with a scab, but if there was infection, there would be pus. Well, the pus was the body responding to that injury, and the white blood cells created pus to push the infection out of the body. So that is a overall picture of how an injury can create inflammation in the body. All right, so there you have the creation of it, and that affects certain um, types of autoimmune diseases. The one thing that is common among all these autoimmune diseases I'm going to mention today is that they are triggered and that they are impacted by inflammation in the body. Some are by injury, as I just mentioned, and then there are others that are where that excessive amount of inflammation is in the body and it affects the organs or the tissues of the body. Okay. So now the reason I'm talking about lupus and arthritis is because they are autoimmune diseases, which means there is an excess of inflammation in the body. And the hope or the desire, my endeavor, was to reduce the effects of this lupus in my body. So there were a couple people that I did consult with, indirectly, of course. One is a doctor by the name of Brooke Goldman, and she wrote a book called Goodbye Lupus, and it's a wonderful book. Brooke Goldner, Goldner, and she wrote a wonderful book called Goodbye Lupus. It's very comprehensive. Now, she's pretty bold to say it can be eliminated, that lupus can not only be managed and treatments can, you can give, there are treatments that you can get for lupus and arthritis that will control the all of the signs or the symptoms and the effects of this very, very, it's a pretty severe disease. It can be fatal depending on where this inflammation created uh, strikes in your body. So, Brooke Goldner is a doctor that was diagnosed with end stage kidney disease at the age of 16. So she was dying because of the high levels of inflammation in her body. Now, lupus loves to attack the kidneys. It's probably most common in the kidneys and in certain areas of the skin. But when it comes to the internal organ, it's mostly the kidney. So if that's the case, and it gets bad, and it's a severe case, it can come down to uh, end stage or renal failure and different stages, and even end stage disease. And that's where she was with this disease, and she suffered through it, went through a lot of things. She became a doctor. She studied. She became a doctor, and she developed some nutritional habits and did some experiments and some exploration with food and other non-pharmacological, meaning no pharmacy, no medicine, types of cures and management and treatment for the disease. As a result, now with children that are in their teens, grown, married, and children in their teens, she is free of lupus. So, her book, again, is called Goodbye Lupus. And her name is Brooke, Brooke, last name Goldner, Goldner. And you can find that on Amazon. Now, also, you can follow her on YouTube. And she has sessions every Wednesday, question and answer sessions about the cures and the treatments for lupus and other autoimmune diseases. Now, some of the diseases that she mentions, which are pretty stunning, that not only can be managed but also can be cured, are arthritis, type 2 diabetes, of course, lupus, Sjogren's disease, even MS, multiple sclerosis, because it is an autoimmune disease. So if you can control the inflammation, then you can control the disease. If you can control the disease and get it managed with food and uh, supplements, then you can also be cured of it. She demands that and insists on that in the book. So please refer to that book. Now, I'm going to list to you, and let's just talk a little bit about lupus. Let's talk a little bit first about inflammation and what it is. And you need to understand that it's not a death sentence and it's not something that you have to live with. All right, so I'm going to put this up. We're not going to scroll it. Okay, if you can see that. All right, let's see if I can get, okay, inflammation. All right, let's see if we've got it up there. I don't know why I scrolled it. So give me a chance. And I hope that you will share this with someone. And I hope that you will also use some of the things that are in here. And I'm not doing this out of my own, volition, but I just don't think that we have to hold back information that's going to help other people. And so I'm going to use to what I've learned through experience to actually help other people to avert or avoid some of the suffering that I've gone through. All right. So in my case, with lupus, okay, let's see, there we go. All right, so in my case with lupus, I found out early in the morning, at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Donna North, I love you. Um, and there, I found out early in the morning, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, that there was a serious problem going on in my body. I was just pretty close to being crippled to the point, and this was about a year ago. We're coming up on a year. That my husband, I woke up in the middle of the night and I needed to go to the restroom, but I couldn't lift my head off the pillow because there was so much inflammation through my body. I didn't know it at the time. I just knew that every joint and every muscle in my body was in severe pain. Finally went to the doctor and got a diagnosis of mild lupus with arthritis. Now, lupus, again, there are a couple of different types. The type that I was diagnosed with is the systemic type, which means it can be on the outside as well on the inside. And again, depending on which organ or which body system or organ it hits, depends on your signs and symptoms. So when I say that it depends on it, what's going on is your body is fighting against itself. Your immune system will see something in the body, and it may be your kidney. Again, it loves the kidneys. And it'll look at the kidney and it'll think it's a foreign invader, and it will attack the kidney. So if it attacks the kidney, then obviously there's renal disease. And if that continues to increase, it can also go from kidney disease into renal failure. All right. Now, if it affects the brain, then you could have seizures. If the inflammation is heavy in the heart area, it can cause heart attacks. And there are other problems that you can experience just because there is inflammation in these body systems and organs. All right. So it's important to know this because it is something that if you know and you can treat it, you can avoid some very serious things. All right, here we go. Let's look at lupus and the idea of inflammation. So inflammation, if I can get that up in front of me. Okay. All right. Inflammation that happens where there is no injury. So a lot of times it will happen where there's injury. You've fallen, or you've had a bump, or you've had some type of contusion, or you've had um, bruising, and again the body starts to fight off anything that is where there are germs or pathogens or whatever, and the white blood cells increase and they go there to push it out of that area. Well, that would be painful because the inflammation in that part of the body, because of what the inflammation is doing, it's painful. So that's why if there's an infection in your body, there's pain. When you get rid of the inflammation and the infection, the pain subsides. That's why you're often given things like antibiotics and other anti-inflammatories to get rid of it. So, but we're going to talk about non-pharmacological methods or medical methods, because some people prefer that. And the reason I'm doing this is because I preferred it. And there may be some people that are taking medications and body's building up an immunity to it, and it's not effective. So in that case, you would want to look into some other methods of handling it. All right, let me just show you this one. And this is just again talking about the autoimmune system. All right, you can see that banner there. All right, so it says that in autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, type 1 diabetes is a autoimmune disease. Ulcerative colitis, these are problems in the gastrointestinal area. Colitis can be very, very painful, very serious, and can affect the digestive functions. Irritable bowel syndrome is another one. Also, as I have here, multiple sclerosis. And most people think that, well, once you get MS, it's going to cause you to decline and decline until finally, you succumb to this disease. However, because it is an autoimmune disease, it's related to the amount of inflammation in the body, it can be managed. And according to Brooke Goldner, and her book, Goodbye Lupus, it can be done away with. So again, here's how it works. It says the body mistakenly reacts to its own tissue as if it were a foreign invader. Okay. So that's what the autoimmune system does in the case of lupus, which is my situation. So obviously, it's important to me to get rid of the lupus so that I'm not looking at, the fact that my body is seeing my lungs and thinking that they're an invader and they go and attack the lungs, or that my heart is an invader and it attacks the heart and your entire circulatory system. And that's serious, and that really happens because you can have inflammation in the lining of your blood vessels. So that means when the blood flows, it can carry that inflammation to every single system and area of your body. And then you come up with all kinds of other types of autoimmune diseases. I want to list a few of them for you, and then I want to talk about ways of working with it. All right, so one is myalgia, and myalgia is muscle pain, and it's often caused by an injury, or if you overuse your muscles, work out too much, run too much, work too much, don't give your body the rest to heal, and you overwork your muscles, there can be what's called an injury to the muscles, which can cause myalgia. And that's going to be the pain. And it says also infection, and it's characterized by local soreness. So we're gonna include that in one of the areas that can be benefited by the study and the use of ginger and turmeric. All right, another one is fibromyalgia. You may have heard this one. This is much more common. That is a chronic condition, and the difference is that myalgia spreads throughout the body. It is throughout the entire body, and the muscles are what are being affected. There's pain there, and that's even if there is no injury, but there is pain and inflammation in your muscles, and that causes fibromyalgia. And I can tell you from visiting people and knowing people that have that, that it is a very painful, well, if you have a flare up or an episode with fibromyalgia, it could land you in the hospital for quite some time and very difficult inability to cope with the pain, so they'll have to treat you with medicine, sometimes antibiotics and serums and so forth. But again, it is autoimmune disease, so we're going to look at this a little bit closer. All right, now fibromyalgia is again a problem. It brings with it, it's not just throughout the muscles, but it brings with it problems like irritable bowel system, which means the function of your bowels may be impacted by, excessive, use of, the disposal of food from the body to the point where you can even get dehydrated, or you can't function, or you can't have a regular daily life cycle because of this level of irritable bowel system. It also brings headaches, even extreme headaches like migraines, and it brings about tiredness. That's another one of the signs and symptoms. And something else that's called fibro fog, which is fogginess of the brain. You're not clear, and the thinking is a challenge, a battle because of the inflammation. So it affects you neurologically as well as physically. All right. In addition to that, you could have sleep problems. It may cause you to be drowsy and sleep a lot, or you may have sleep problems at the other end of the spectrum that will prevent you from being able to rest like you really need to for your body to re-energize and heal. It affects the central nervous system, and that again is where the body interprets or misinterprets something that's going on in your body. So if you were hurt and you had bumped your shoulder and you rubbed it, you're giving yourself a little tactile stimuli to kind of ease the pain. Well, with fibromyalgia, the body can interpret this tactile stimuli as dangerous and produce pain. So it really plays a lot of tricks with the body and causes a lot of discomfort. The central nervous system, and it also causes problems with moods. So you can experience stress, depression, and anxiety, not triggered necessarily by anything specific going on in your life, but just the fact that fibromyalgia is what you are dealing with, and that is caused by the inflammation in your body. Now, there's another one, and this one is called polymyalgia. And polymyalgia is characterized by aching or morning stiffness in the shoulders, neck, and hips. This is polymyalgia. And the cause is the immune system has a dysfunction. So, if there are dysfunctions with your immune system, you could get a diagnosis of polymyalgia, leading to this dysfunction leads to inflammation, which of course brings the chance of a host of other diseases coming or becoming active in your body. Now, the last few letters of the word itis means infection. All right, so now there are a few other areas I want to list because I'd never seen these as autoimmune diseases. Alopecia areata, which are bald spots. That's that's a byproduct of inflammation in the body. And so that's something that can be reversed, averted, and even you can even be healed or cured of it. Alopecia areata, dermatitis, which affects one of the layers of the skin, and that is with rashes, You got the dermis and the epidermis, and so the dermis is top layer, so it could be rashes and looks like what are bruises or dark spots. There is one very recognizable or rash that is known as the butterfly effect. It comes across the bridge of the nose and over into the cheekbones, over as far as almost the cheekbones, but definitely this entire area of the body. And there'll be a rash right there. And that is a sign that there is lupus. That is a characteristic of lupus. Arthritis is when it is in the joints, when the inflammation is affecting your joints, inability to move, stiffness, swelling, sometimes swelling so bad that the joints like your knees or your fingers or your ankles are almost unrecognizable in comparison to the other ankle or other knee, or if it's in both, that's going to be the bilateral effect. So it will definitely affect you there. That inflammation can get in those feet and even all the way down to your toes. You're swollen and your ankles. And so these are things that everybody doesn't know about, but you can be made aware of ways to control it easy without hospitalizations. It is something that can be done, but as it is said there, I want you to remember to talk to your primary care doctor, and that's because everybody is different. Their bodies are affected different. And in lupus, there are discolored spots, there are nail changes. So it can cause thickness of the nails, cracking of the nails, where the nails can even separate from the nail bed. Um, Lupus can also cause central nervous system problems, again, like headaches, confusion, and seizures. It like fibromyalgia, there are gastrointestinal problems that can simply spin off of this high level of inflammation in certain areas of the body, and that would be such as headaches, confusion, seizures. In the gastrointestinal area, it can be pain, bloating, and cramps. And, often we think of the worst, is this cancer? What is going on here? And it could simply be that there is an excessive amount of inflammation striking that area of the body. Let's see. It can give you weight loss, which I have no qualms with. I just don't want to lose it that way. Also, the kidney disease and swollen ankles, which we talked about. Okay, that is enough of that because we all know that autoimmune disease is very um, unfortunate. It's a very unfortunate way of trying to exist. So we want to find ways around it. Now, to do that, I wanted to say if the problem, because the common denominator in all of these is inflammation. So if there's inflammation in the body and the problem that triggers these diseases or these episodes or flares, as they are called, then you want to reduce, number one, you want to reduce the amount of inflammation in the body. So that would be like having a hole, having a bucket, and you have to plug the hole up in order to make the bucket useful so that all of what you're doing is just not, you know, being offset by this hole. So what you have to do with an excessive amount of inflammation in the body is reduce the amount of inflammation causing foods that you eat. And so that now you're not building it up, and then we want to talk about getting rid of it. And fortunately, you can do them simultaneously. All right, so if you get a cold, don't, reduce your inflammation in the body by, let me hide that, reduce the inflammation in your body by watching the foods that you eat. One would be dairy foods. So, a lot of dairy causes inflammation, which triggers your immune diseases, all the way from diabetes and arthritis up to multiple sclerosis. All right, I'm saying these things and I hope and pray that people will be affected and impacted. All right, additionally, um, to reducing those things that are like dairy, your butter. It depends on how bad it is. In my 20s, I was diagnosed with arthritis. So I began to reduce because it was so painful and because it was debilitating me. I could not fasten my buttons on my blouse. I couldn't roll my hair. I couldn't comb my hair some days. Some days it was just, if I got all that done and did get into the office, I couldn't sit too long. If I sat too long, I would have to take my time getting up, stretching those muscles, working those joints so that I'm not hurting too much and that I can move at a good pace. So that was a problem. So with the reduction of the dairy, it helped me. So I had to cut down and cut out milk because that was a big problem. Milk was a big problem. Additionally, butter, ice cream, all the good stuff, sherbets, uh, and cheeses, things like that, I reduced. And it didn't get rid of the inflammation, but it reduced the inflammation. Well, over a period of time, I just ran into a person that was selling some products and supplements, and I just chose, for whatever reason, I chose to support this person by purchasing alfalfa from them. Now, alfalfa is an anti-inflammatory. So I started taking the alfalfa and the swelling in my fingers went all the way down. So I didn't have to take my naproxen anymore for anti-inflammatory. And then the pain was gone. So I didn't have to take the Darvocet for the pain. So I got rid of those drugs in my life by using the alfalfa. And then it got to the place where I was so confident that I had gotten past that I went ahead and I began to eat those foods again. And I was okay as long as I took the alfalfa. I had so much alfalfa stored up in my body by taking 5 or 6 or 7 of these tablets a day that you get at the health food store that I went ahead and started up with my milk and cereal, which I love, and my butters and cheeses and my sherbet and ice cream. I was okay as long as I was taking the alfalfa. However, when I was diagnosed with the lupus, the alfalfa didn't touch it. It didn't do much of anything for me. It's good for your digestive system, so if you have digestive problems, alfalfa is good. But it did not touch my lupus signs or symptoms. So with that, I had to look and find some other ways. That's when I got the book Goodbye Lupus, and that is goodbye as in cure for lupus, which was the ideal situation for me. With that, I would learn that there were foods that are anti-inflammatory. When I went to my doctor, she wanted to offer me serums, infusions that would cause hair loss, that would cause kidney damage. It was not a steroid, but it would compromise my immune system, which to me was, a catch 22 because if you have problems with your immune system, why would you suppress it? So I did not want to go that route. I didn't see the value and benefit in taking a chance on making it worse and allowing my body to accept other sicknesses and diseases that it could not fight off because what I was taking for lupus was suppressing my immune system. I hope you're following me. So my next question was, are there any non-pharmacological solutions? Or are there any non medicinal solutions to treating this disease? Well, she wasn't too happy that I asked the question and she didn't give me a hopeful expression on her face or tone or even her posture. But she did say, well, you would want to then adjust your diet. So there are certain things that you want to eat, certain things you want to stay away from in your lifestyle. You're going to have to exercise and work hard. Okay, so changing your lifestyle, eating different foods, that sounds like it's going to take a long time to take effect. But I did it anyway, and it was a slow process. Now, I got the book again, Goodbye Lupus, by Brooke Goldner, and she gave a lot of different things that you can do. One was called hypernutrition. Hypernutrition. Now, a lot of us, we eat, the green vegetables, and we have all the nutrients, the foods and fresh vegetables, or the vegetables and the fruits, and lots of water to hydrate. And those things are good. However, we cook them, and when we cook them, like I love greens, I love the Swiss chard greens, I love collard greens mixed in with my Swiss chards, or the other way around. I do love cabbage, and I love salads. Now, the problem with the ones that are cooked is that you're going to cook a lot of nutrition out of it. So, her suggestion was to get into your body so much daily. There's a daily regimen that she has of fresh fruits and vegetables, not cooked. So, she does that by way of smoothies. So, whatever you're eating, make certain that you get this specific amount of fresh fruits into your diet. And the way to do that again was with smoothies. So I began to buy things like the spinach. I would put pineapple in it. I would put blueberries in it. There would be other things that were good, just fruits and vegetables all blended up. And then when you drink the smoothie, your body is getting the full value of your nutrition. Now, of the nutrition that's in those leaves, you haven't diminished it by cooking. The one thing that was a problem was, even if it was because it's hypernutrition, even if you put it in the blender, sometimes the motor can run a little bit hot. And her concern was even that small amount of heat would decrease some of the nutritious value in food. So she would put all of those fruits and vegetables together. Pineapple, we know that's good for arthritis and inflammation. Other things that are in the book, but she would blend it with ice so that the effect of the heat from the motor in the blender would not would not prevent you from getting the entire value of the nutrition. All right. Now, here's a couple of diseases that I did not mention are autoimmune. Psoriasis, and here's a new one to me, vitiligo. Vitiligo. So this is something that can be treated, and it can be managed. And according to Brooke Goldner, uh, if you get these substances into your body through hypernutrition, it can even be reversed. So vitiligo, another one is Crohn's disease, and Crohn's disease can be fatal. I am a chaplain, hospice chaplain. I was, and now I am a hospice chaplain. And I've had patients that, they struggled and they suffered, and they went through a lot of different health challenges because of this Crohn's disease. And it affected their daily ability. They spent a lot of time in the hospital and ultimately succumbed to the illness. The IBS, the colitis is where, no, the Crohn's is where the inflammation and the disease is in the bowel. The colitis is where it is specifically in the colon. And then, of course, lupus is in the skin, and it attacks the organ. Now, here's what I would like to say. Ginger, and let me just get this in front of you. Ginger, using natural things, everything God created has multiple functions in it. So there are flowers that we can think that I can think of now. The lavender flower, it is absolutely beautiful. It's fragrant, but also it has a medicinal effect with anxiety and depression. So that's a benefit. So there are other benefits that come along with consumption and the use of these different plants. All right, so inflammation we know is a problem. Now, let me show you that ginger is a benefit for those that are suffering because it can work against the inflammation. All right, so this is telling us that, let me get that back in front of me. Okay, one primary use for ginger um, in traditional medicine is in reducing inflammation. And this is a benefit that now is well supported by scientific literature. All right, it reduces inflammation. So, and that's what your goal is to reduce the inflammation, ultimately bring it under control. And the byproduct of that is that you bring the disease under control, or depending on your diet and your consistency, you can be healed of it. And that is everything from the arthritis, the psoriasis, vitiligo, the fibromyalgia, the polymyalgia, the multiple sclerosis, lupus, arthritis, diabetes can all be healed if they are triggered and fueled by the inflammation. And you control the inflammation, you control the disease. Okay? So, again, just to read it once again, this is to let you know if that's the problem, well, then tell me what the answer is. And here's one of them. One of the primary uses for ginger in traditional medicine is in reducing inflammation, and this is a benefit that is now well supported by the scientific community. Now, I'm going to speak for myself. Uh, I use ginger and turmeric, and many of us have heard about the benefits of turmeric. I had a doctor that was Indian descent, and she swore by it, and she insisted that I use it in my cooking, and that I use the turmeric powder as I was making smoothies, and just put it in everything, is what she said. And so I did. However, it was a slow process because, depending on if you got pure turmeric or if you got something with a lot of additional fillers or ingredients in it, and if you were getting enough, and if it was making a difference. So to get around all of that, because I wanted to get away from the lupus, I purchased some ginger. I bought the ginger root from the supermarket, and I found out that you could also get the turmeric in its root form. And I would buy those, and they had to be scraped just like you would do potatoes before you cook or fry or boil or whatever you're going to do. But they would have to be scraped from the outer skin. And from there, my husband would put it in a juicer and juice it. So I end up with large bottles or jars of turmeric and ginger in my refrigerator. And what I do is I want the effect of it. So I will put about maybe 2 tablespoons worth into my water. And that would be for the turmeric. And then for the ginger, maybe a teaspoon or half a teaspoon. That would be a lot for a 16.9 ounce bottle of water. Shake it up, put a little lemon in there for flavor, and of course, you know that the lemon water has its benefits. And I sip on that, drink that all day, every day. And let me just tell you, I went from being nearly crippled about a year ago, unable to move. The doctor actually put me on FMLA, and if things continued to get worse, then I was going to have to go on disability Or, who wants to be debilitated when you get, to an age where you can go and enjoy your life and do things and be with people and not have to worry about punching the clock too much. But uh, I do what I do, which is I am a hospice chaplain and I love my patients and I love what I do. So I want to do some things and not just sit at home. But of course, there are benefits to the peace that you get from not having the stressors of every day showing up at jobs, etc. So we do the ginger. I'll put the ginger in the water and I will put the turmeric in the water and I will put a little lemon in the water and drink that. Now, how do I know it's effective? Now, somebody's going to say, oh, if you don't put pepper in it, it's not going to have any effect at all. And they may very well be right in their situation, and they may very well believe it. But I did not know that there should be additional pepper in it. I just tried it without it. And I want you to know that my experience is that it worked for me. I don't have any of these problems with my joints. I did have excessive swelling to come back in my foot maybe several months later. And it was in my foot, it was in my ankle, and it was just inflammation, even down to my toes. So I was so embarrassed by it. I just didn't want anyone to see, what this inflammation was doing to my leg. And so I just began with the ginger. I increased it. I took that and then it opened up the blood vessels. It seemed to dilate their function or to get rid of the inflammation that was in the blood vessels. That is a part of lupus. And now the ankle, the foot, the leg, everything is just symmetrical to the other one where there were no problems. And what I'll do now is if I notice that there's inflammation increasing in my body, and I can tell by the stiffness that may come in my joints. It may hurt, they may get a little tight, and I know that that is a signal that inflammation is increasing. By what? By something that I ate, or by my diet, because I do cheat a little bit. I do sometimes want some pasta, I want some spaghetti or some lasagna or something, but I know that that is a day when I have to really be diligent with my ginger and turmeric um, intake. Okay? So now I have learned how to manage these symptoms. Another sign that I get that there's inflammation in my body because it is lupus and it is systemic is I may get a rash right there on the back of my neck. And I know that that is a direct result from the lupus and it causes itching. So I have to go back to a usual diet of including my turmeric and ginger. But one other thing I noticed triggers it, and that's sugar. I love sugar, but I cannot have, even cough drops if I have to have one because of the weather right now. I found out, two or three cough drops at a time will put that sugar in my system and it will trigger itching in that lupus. So I had to remove a lot of these sugary desserts and treats and things that I like. I had to remove those from my diet. And, it's a good trade off because the itching, the swelling, and the soreness go away. All right, I've given you so much information. Now, what I'm going to do is put some information in there now from my doctor's office. And one thing that she did, which I didn't mention, but I appreciated it, upon request, she directed me to or referred me to what's called a functional medicine physician's office. All right, functional medicine clinic of this particular hospital. And from them, after talking with them, and they gave me some links and some videos to look at, some articles to read, a couple of books to read, and they also gave me some information that was where you can purchase or you can actually just get a free app online so that you can follow your intake of uh, inflammation triggering foods. And the app is called Dr. Grieger's Daily Dozen, and it lets you track your daily servings. So you can have a log of what you're doing, what went the wrong way, because a lot of times we'll try to figure out what did I eat that day? Or, just before this, I was doing just fine. What happened? So this will, and it's a free app. It's called Dr. Grieger's, GR, and this doctor, just DR dot, and the doctor's name, Grieger, Greger apostrophe S, daily dose. All right. And in there, they suggest a lot of foods, a lot of different things. So, what I'll do is when I come back and talk about this again, because I'm giving you an update on my lupus condition and my management of it. And right now, I am doing very good, very good. And I'm not concerned that I'm going to be disabled. I'm not concerned that I'm going to need to be hospitalized or some of these things that happen to you like the butterfly rash, because when I eat sugar, it starts the itching. So I know that it's triggering the lupus, and that now the skin is being affected. The joints will start to swell, different things. So I will put into I'm going to have to do it later on today, but I'll put some of these links to these videos and even a link to Dr. Goldner's book, Goodbye Lupus, and some of these articles that the functional medicine doctor gave me to tell me to include certain nuts and vegetables and fruits and, carnivorous vegetables and, to eat things like salads and, smoothies with fresh vegetables or fruits. And so what I do is you can't always you buy it in bulk unless you want to be at the produce market every day. I just buy it frozen, and that helps because remember you have to have that frozen effect to get the benefits out of it because the heat from the blender could diminish some of this hypernutrition. So I'll just get I've got black cherries, I've got strawberries. I will use regular bananas. I'll just put a half banana, maybe about 4 chunks of pineapple, about 5 dark cherries, a handful of blueberries, which my husband likes to keep around the house, and maybe about 4 or 5 frozen strawberries. Put that together, and I love silk, so I'll take that milk supplement. I'll take silk and pour it in there with it, and I'll make a very very good smoothie, and I get my nutrients. Now with that, the regular condition of my skin, which I didn't think was abnormal at my age, or for a person uh, 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 with melanin in their skin because it can affect the melanin. As we said, it is vitiligo is a anti-inflammatory disease. So I found that out, but by adding these fruits and vegetables, my hands and my skin, all of that is very is benefiting from it in a great level. So, additionally, I want to say that you want to make sure you hydrate because these autoimmune diseases tend to dehydrate you, which can cause problems with your digestive tract, with your skin, with the actual flushing of the system. There are problems. So, I do drink about 5 or 6 bottles of water a day. And that's not really a lot compared to what some people do, but I do make sure that I get that. And I make sure that I get my turmeric and my ginger. All right, there's a lot more I could say. I could keep talking, but nobody's going to keep listening for a long period of time. So send this to somebody that you know is going through sickness. They're in stage renal disease, like Dr. Goldner was. She was at age 16 and at stage 4 renal disease, meaning she could have passed away at any time, and now is totally free of all of those diseases. So send this to someone and ask them to give this a try. Just try it and see how it affects them and impacts their condition. And perhaps you will make life a lot better Let them know that MS does not have to be a debilitating disease if they believe these supplements are worth trying and they try them. Even if you're just managing them, that's better than completely losing what you have. Okay, and then diminishing to the point of death. All right, well, with that, I'm going to end this live. I didn't think I'd be on here this long, but I definitely wanted to visit you and give you this information in hopes that it would make life better. Okay, and with that, I'm going to say thank you for joining. Pass this on. Please like, share, and tag somebody, and compliment, comment, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. All right, God bless.